Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
Multiple sources telling NBC News tonight that the Trump administration is planning to cut back on the number of Border Patrol agents in that city sometime this week. And the man who's been leading the immigration crackdown there is expected to leave tomorrow, too. This is after the president and the Minnesota governor, Tim Walz, today talked on the phone. The president said, as you can see here, that the two seem to be on a similar wavelength. For his part, Governor Walz says the president talked about reducing the number of agents in his state. And the president's sending somebody new, Border Czar Tom Homan, to Minnesota. Now, this is interesting because Homan has been kind of sidelined from what's happening there after what we have seen develop in the last couple of weeks. This is clearly changing after Saturday's deadly shooting, where the eyewitness videos we've seen so far contradict some of what federal officials initially said happened, when at least one officer shot and killed Alex Preddy, that 37-year-old ICU nurse who had a gun and who officials say was legally allowed to have it. Top Trump administration officials at first using phrases like would-be assassin, suggesting Preddy planned to massacre agents, that he brandished a gun. But look at the multiple videos now coming in from eyewitnesses from different angles, showing Preddy was not holding a weapon during the incident that started with him coming to help a woman being pushed to the ground. That's an angle of those early moments of the interaction slowed down there. The videos also appear to show that a federal agent took what looks to be a gun from Preddy's back holster before he was shot. At one point, you're going to see Preddy's hands circled in the video. No, it doesn't appear there's a gun in those hands. We've got team coverage tonight. We're going to get to Tom Winter for sort of a...
And ladies and gentlemen, let's just be honest. It's a lot. Today's date, January 28, 2026, and this is How the Frack Got Here. I'm your host, most Will Buchanan. On the Frack Got Here, like we always do, we take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we do pride ourselves on being a news podcast. What does that mean? We only cite from reputable sources with award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, The Daily Beast, wherever you get your extreme left or extreme right views from. We simply don't do that. At the same time, we do try to kind of tone down on the profanity, but let's be honest, words fly. And just as you just saw about 5 minutes ago, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So yes, the would-be border control commander, Greg Bovino, is on his way out of Minnesota, and unfortunately, would-be Kingpin tried to use Ozempic and forgot to stop eating the right way. Tom Hoonan will be coming to Minnesota. Now, of course, this does follow, unfortunately, after the murder of a RN. This also follows the murder of a person that was simply just trying to back out of her driveway. This follows upon the multiple assailants and crimes that the modern day Gestapo ICE has done in recent events, especially most recent being the one of Alex Preddy. To where Tim Walz, the current governor of Minnesota, did speak with, unfortunately, Taco. And of course, he's supposed to be on very good terms, which basically sounds like we're only playing nice until we have to. Of course, every Tom Hoonan interview gives me the fact of what happened to Jim Crow. Well, he's been reincarnated and is now the border czar, if you will, of Taco's administration. What does that basically mean? Well, like in most fashion in Taco's administration, if you cannot get somebody of a certain stature to get the job done, bring in an old white man that simply does not care about anything, will say anything without consequence, and put him as the face of your immigration. Because let's be honest, whenever it's immigration, it's always a white dude. I'm just saying. So I'm not expecting much outside the fact that, yes, some border agents may be leaving Minnesota. However, the damage has been done by Taco. And again, if I am Democrats, if I have been saying this in every podcast, if I'm Democrats, they are the current administration is giving you all the free content for the next 10 months. They're giving you all the free content. I would be surprised if Minnesota at this point votes conservative. I'll be honest with you. In the midterms, I will be surprised for Minnesota's House representatives and senators. I will be effing surprised if they vote conservative. Not just because of the fact that Taco decided to take it upon himself to literally sit there and say people of color, specifically Somali Americans, specifically Representative Ilhan Omar, that they are disgusting, that they're freeloaders, that they've taken advantage and abused Minnesota's system of multiple $billion gone and unaccounted for. How a would-be so-called video journalist accused people of color's daycare, saying that they're taking away from the state and actually don't have children attending. The fact that he tried to barge in to these areas where children are kept just to verify if they're daycares, and that was immediately debunked. This also stems from the fact that Taco's administration didn't actually talk about the real welfare queen of Minnesota, who, shockingly was white, who acted like she did nothing wrong while embezzling multi-million dollars out of a system, but swears up and down she's innocent. But Taco and the conservatives will never talk about the fraud, waste, and abuse when it comes to white people. So what am I getting at here? Yeah, some border agents may leave, but the damage has been done. And at the same time, I love the fact that, as I said at the title of this podcast, the ice is melting, because that wouldn't have happened. I'm just being honest with you, because if Mrs. Good's murder did not change anything, if Alex Preddy murder did not change anything, if it was for the fact that people were relentless in protesting against ICE, against Trump, against the current regime, the fact that they stood up, and keep in mind, it wasn't just a couple of days ago, they had a mass protest, and this was in 20 and below temperatures, mass protest out in the cold against ICE. And I'm gonna be honest with you, for all that, for a lot of people, they sat there and said, oh, we're going to protest, but we're going to stop going to work. We're going to stop spending money. We're going to stop going to school. And I always find it funny that if you look at A Bug's Life, if you look at Star Wars Andor, if you look at practically any movie, if you were born after 75, every movie was always about resistance. And even now, the current entertainment, whether it's TV shows, movies, anime, whatever you watch, it's about some type of resistance. That's why everybody's quoting, Orwell's 1984 or V for Vendetta, or, I'll even go so far as the first Avengers in that one scene where Captain America shows up. They're all about resistance, standing up to resistance. And that's what the Minnesotans did. And that, I believe, is what changed the tide. Because, again, conservatives, unfortunately, Trump's job is secure for another year. Nothing we can do about that. I mean, technically, health could do something with that, but that's neither here nor there. As far as his presidency, can't stop it. But the senators and representatives 10 months from now are fair game. And like I said, Taco may have lost the state for himself, because not only did you tick off people of color, you ticked off everybody. And if there's one thing I will sit there and say, what unifies a whole bunch of people from different aspects is hatred toward one thing. And he just became the lightning rod for what's going to make conservatives a very hard case for them in Minnesota in November. But here's another thing that, again, I'm going to point out, because a lot of folks are wondering, well, he only went after Democratic states. He only went after this, that, and the other. What are the reasons against Minnesota? Well, here's the crazy part, that this, again, I am surprised a lot of news outlets are not speaking on this, was the fact that Taco tried to be sneaky and underhand Minnesota by giving them a deal via his White House press secretary. But I'll let the video tell the story.
Farland joins me now. Scott, there was a hearing today in which the state of Minnesota asked a federal judge to essentially order the Trump administration to end Operation Metro Surge. The judge did not make a ruling and said there were lots of parameters that had to be studied, precedent, law on the books, and acknowledging this is completely uncharted territory.
Judge had a lot of concerns and expressed them over the course of this lengthy hearing at the federal court in Minneapolis. And she's ordered the Department of Justice to make some responses to questions that were pending and to do so by the middle of the week. Among the things the judge referenced, Major, was this letter sent by Attorney General Pam Bondi to Minnesota state officials indicating, or at least intimating, they'd pull back the troops, they'd pull back the federal agents, they'd pull back the federal deployed Homeland Security agents if the state would hand over information about voter rolls, hand over information about fraud investigations or benefits that are received by people in Minnesota. And the judge was concerned that doesn't seem to be in lockstep with the mission that's been proclaimed for these agents. And what's more, the judge noted that the feds have been challenging Minnesota in the courts on a lot of these issues, from voting rolls to fraud to benefits. And the judge is wondering if they're not trying to secure through force what they can't easily secure in the courts.
Scott McFarland, thank you very much.
And that right there, that again, that was through his press secretary that sat there and told the governor, governor of Minnesota, we will pull ICE if you give us access to the state's voter rolls and public assistance data. Why does that sound familiar? It's the same thing Musk tried to do when he was with Doge. Doge wanted access to every citizen's data. That was the big thing. Remember, for all those that don't remember last year, he wanted so bad through his Doge that they wanted access. He wanted financial, voter, he wanted the whole 9 yards. And at the same time, so many people slammed the doors like, why does Doge need this data? Why do they want our information? In the same sense, and I'm just speculating, I think Elon wanted to basically give the voter data to Taco and his group for them to go ahead and, how can we say this in every sense of the word, weed out the Democratic people. There's just, guys, I wish there was better ways to say this, but again, I'll put it this way: there's distraction, and then there's intention. This was never, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, this honestly was never about illegal immigration. It never was. And here's the thing I would keep on saying: I wish they were honest about it, because it wasn't about illegal immigration. Because if you think about it, if it really was, and I'm just going to be honest with you guys, if it really was about illegal immigration, why are they in Minnesota? Texas has well over 3 million undocumented people. I don't see ICE in Texas. I don't see ICE in New Mexico. I don't see ICE in Florida. I don't see ICE in North Carolina, South Carolina. I don't see ICE in Mississippi, Alabama, Kentucky. I don't see this surge of ICE, Gestapo in southern states. But you go after DC, Chicago, Los Angeles, Baltimore, Maryland, now Maine, and now just recently Atlanta. So it's amazing to me that all these areas, supposedly hotspots for the modern day Gestapo to go into, are all Democratic. And at the same time, he hands, and again, this is again from his personal lapdog, Pam Bondi, sitting there telling Governor Tim Walz, if you give us the voter data, we'll leave. That alone tells me it is not about finding the worst of the worst. It is about securing the midterms. And if you don't believe me on that, I just talked about Georgia. As of today, the FBI raided Fulton County's election facility.
Ballots, the first warrant was not valid. Just procedurally, it was not valid. And then they went and corrected it, and they came back with a warrant for all of the 2020 ballots. I mean, this is not new. We knew there's a case right now pending about this, and they are in there collecting 700 boxes of ballots right now. We are obviously concerned about once the ballots leave here, what will happen to the ballots, and our lawyers are going to be working on that.
We begin tonight with those developments in Fulton County. FBI agents raided the Fulton County Elections Hub and Operations Center in a case related to the 2020 election. Good evening. I'm Russ Spencer.
I'm Courtney Bryant. Officials confirmed agents were serving a sealed search warrant at the election facility in Fairburn. The site opened in 2023 to centralize and modernize election operations. Fox News' Larry Spruill has been at the scene all day.
Well, Larry, commissioners held a news conference a little more than an hour ago.
Yeah, good evening, Russ and Courtney. They did have that news conference earlier around 5 o'clock right in front of this building. We are in the back of this building. Still a lot is going on right now. Let me step out of the way so you can see what I'm talking about. We want to focus on those Enterprise trucks. We do know that the FBI agents right now are loading those 700 boxes from inside of the building into those Enterprise trucks right there. Now, the FBI is conducting an active sealed search warrant inside the building. I was able to get my hands on that warrant, and it does list this as a criminal investigation. But let's take a look at some exclusive video of the agents inside the building. My photographer, Michael Moore, was able to get this video of those agents. Now, so here's what we know right now. A North Georgia Fulton County magistrate judge signed a warrant to allow the agents to search this building. The FBI would not confirm what's in that search warrant, but our sources and contacts tell us this is all about the 2020 elections. Now, as we mentioned before earlier, that state senators have spoken against this. Let's take a listen what they had to say.
They came back with a warrant for all of the 2020 ballots. I mean, this is not new. We knew there's a case right now pending about this, and they are in there collecting 700 boxes of ballots right now. We are obviously concerned about once the ballots leave here, what will happen to the ballots, and our lawyers are going to be working on that. They are working on that as we speak right now. Let me just speak to the larger issue about what this is really all about. This is a scare tactic. This is something that we have seen done before. This is to instill fear and chaos, something that, our officials at the national level are doing on a daily basis. And this is not a surprise for us here in Fulton County.
This is absolutely crazy. A judge has sealed these records. Judge McBurney has these records under seal. They have filed a lawsuit seeking the exact same records and were denied access in that lawsuit. And because they were denied access in the civil lawsuit, they are now serving a criminal search warrant.
And who's the defendant?
And the criminal search warrant is under seal.
Right.
So we don't even know who the target of the investigation is.
And those state leaders also say this is a target against Fulton County, and Fulton County did nothing wrong when it comes to the 2020 elections. And we also know since our 5 o'clock hit that both the DOJ and FBI leaders are here on the scene. They arrived in 3 black SUVs. We are also told they will be speaking to the media any time now. So we are waiting and we're monitoring that situation as well. But we have a team of reporters on this story for tonight. We'll have the latest coming up tonight at 10. We're live in Fulton County.
And what the crazy part about this is, guys, that for all, if you were wondering why you're scratching your head, Fulton County, why does that sound familiar? Because that was the case of the election interference case and the previous election with Trump. Remember that case? For a lot of people who don't know, there was a certain prosecutor that he went after. There was a certain prosecutor that he went after because they were ready, because the prosecutor at the time was ready to bring that case. That's what a lot of people don't remember. That for the simple fact of the matter, Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis, there we go. Couldn't think of her name. I apologize, Ms. Willis. But Fannie Willis, who was at the time the Fulton District Attorney, was ready to actually prosecute this case. And if you've been following this podcast, we talked about this. What they were going to investigate the 2020 election. and whether or not Trump did intervene. Although Trump did actually call the Georgia Secretary of State, saying, find me 11,580 votes so we can overturn Georgia. I don't know how that's not interference. At the same time, they had those working as pollsters, allowing election voter poll access to folks that shouldn't have it. Folks that were, claiming that there was fraud were actually the fraudsters themselves that were conservatives. You also had Rudy Giuliani that pretty much turned two Georgia election county workers' lives upside down, accusing them of winning the state for Raphael Warnock and Joel Ossoff. And yet their lives turned upside down, which thankfully at the end they did win a judgment. Giuliani is broke as hell, but they did win that judgment and got their names cleared. But this all stemmed from Fulton County. And it's amazing to me that we also said last year that because of what happened with Fani Willis, whether you want to agree with it or not, her improper relationship with her prosecutor, with a fellow prosecutor, then it was that case got pushed back. That case basically took over the main case, and then Trump's case was like, I'm running for president. I can't be involved in the court case. This will harm my election, and somehow it got pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. Trump became president. Next thing you know, I'm president. I'm untouchable. I can't go into a court case. And that's exactly what happened. Fani Willis got dismissed as the Fulton County prosecutor. Another prosecutor was put in their place. And I'm guessing the deal with that said prosecutor was to bury the case of election interference against Trump. So now, this is basically guys going in there and saying, we want to do it. We want to invest. The FBI, which is led by Kash Patel, which is basically Trump's loyalist, an idiot, but we'll get to him momentarily. But all they're doing at this point, much like what they're doing in the case in Minnesota, they are trying to gather any evidence because this is just contingency planning. At this point, the Democrats would have to honestly frack up royally not to clean up the midterms. They would have to frack up royally. I mean, they would have to be so bad that folks would have to sit there and say the conservatives are a better choice. Because I'm going to be honest with you. If Democrats do this right, they will have overwhelming majority in the House and Senate, which is what Taco does not want. So this is the contingency. The contingency is we're going to take all the evidence that you can use against us and either suppress it or take it and destroy it or misplace it, because you cannot have a trial without evidence. Why are they collecting ballot information from a almost 6-year-old election? Because the Democrats could move forward with an indictment. And what do they need for that indictment? The evidence that's currently was sitting in that facility. In the same sense, every one of those ICE agents who either assaulted or did way worse, and I'm not going to go into it, but let's just say a lot of ICE agents should not be ICE agents for the stuff they've done to immigrants. I'm going to leave it at that. But for every crime that everyone did in this administration that can be criminally liable for, they are burying the evidence. And you have Trump's personal lawyer, Pam Bondi, who's in a very unique position. And I say unique position because she's the Department of Justice. And I'm going to get into that momentarily about Department of Justice for 2 decisions that they made. But I want to switch gears for a second. And like I said, I want to talk about the idiot Kash Patel. Why do I want to talk about the idiot Kash Patel? Because, again, this is going into the shooting of Alex Preddy, and he said something that I think a lot of us really should, when you hear it, you're just going to go, what the just watch.
No one who wants to be peaceful shows up at a protest with a firearm that is loaded with 2 full magazines. That is not a peaceful protest, and you do not get to touch law enforcement. You do that anywhere, this FBI is going to be leading the charge to arrest those.
Okay, so I had to stop it right there. But I'm just going to go back 10 seconds. And just in case you didn't hear it, I'm going to play it again.
2 full magazines. That is not said. No one who wants to be peaceful shows up at a protest with a firearm that is loaded with 2 full magazines. That is not a peaceful protest, and you do not get to touch law enforcement. You do that anywhere, this FBI is going to be leading the charge to arrest those.
So, no one, right? So, according to the idiot of the FBI, and hopefully soon to be removed, one can only hope, Kash Patel sat there and says, well, if you're going to a protest, you shouldn't be armed. You shouldn't be armed if you're going to a protest. Really? Let's go down. You know, I always love, because conservatives are always the first one to sit there and say you shouldn't do something. Yeah.
The streets of downtown Raleigh upset over the governor's extended stay-at-home order. CBS 17's Randy Ayala was there this morning. She joins us with a closer look.
The group that gathered earlier this morning was small, but they did have guns in hand, and it was unnerving for some in the community.
Take off your mask. Let me see who you are.
A heated confrontation after a man who claims to live in the Oakwood neighborhood made it clear he did not appreciate the weapons on display.
I want you to take your weapons out of my neighborhood. Then we can have a dialogue. This increases the danger in our neighborhood. Okay? And it's a hostile act.
The protesters gathered at the Oakwood Cemetery before descending on downtown. Raleigh and State Capitol Police spread out throughout, preparing for any scenario. The governor's mansion completely gated off.
I've been really upset to see police go and arrest business owners that just want to open up their business and put food on their table. You know, the government has shut them down. I mean, we don't shut down the state for the seasonal flu.
Protesters want Governor Cooper to lift the stay-at-home order and allow businesses to reopen. So why protest while armed?
Even though we have the right to protest, and they don't dispute that, and we have the right to bear arms, and they don't dispute that, they said we're not allowed to do both at once, or it's a second-degree misdemeanor according to the state of North Carolina.
In Raleigh.
Oh, we have the right to protest. And we have the right to bear arms. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. America. And again, people, well, that was during COVID. And that's an isolated incident. Really? I guess we forgot what happened when the Michigan governor decided that, she did something. And we had another armed protest.
Hundreds of protesters, some armed with guns, entered Michigan's state capitol in Lansing on Thursday, objecting to Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer's request to extend emergency powers to combat COVID-19. Police allowed more than 100 protesters to enter the Capitol, where they were crammed shoulder to shoulder and sought access to legislative chambers, some carrying long guns, few wearing face masks. Protesters had their temperature taken by police as they entered. Inside, they sang the national anthem and chanted, "Let us work." State authorities have warned that protesters could be ticketed for violating social distancing rules. Police didn't appear to enforce that during Thursday's protest. The mayor of Lansing on Wednesday said that he was disappointed protesters would put themselves and others at risk. Democratic Michigan Representative Rashida Tlaib condemned the protest in a strongly worded tweet, writing, "Black people get executed by police for just existing, while white people dressed like militia members carrying assault weapons are allowed to threaten state legislators and staff." State legislative approval for Whitmer's state of emergency declaration is set to expire after Thursday.
And again, that was during COVID, where Governor Whitmer did actually have essential workers only, and folks were doing social distancing and are supposed to be staying at home. And yet, we see armed protesters. The rights to bear arms shall not be infringed. America. And it is amazing to me that as we guys, because that was again during COVID, we had conservatives. I mean, let's not forget the plan to kidnap the Michigan governor. 6 white men wanted to do that, all armed. At the same time, whenever there was a conservative protest, they were armed, except at CPAC, at conservative areas to where the more higher conservatives didn't want to speak with the lower ones, to speak the lower poor ones, and they made sure that firearms were not allowed, which I find amazing. But here's the piece de resistance to my argument to Mr. Patel, who apparently is a loyalist and not a very who's not very good at his job. If you look at everything he's done so far, because you shouldn't bring, and again, I'm using the most recent example to show the effing hypocrisy that they're going with about armed protests, because you may have forgotten about them, but for the rest of us, we haven't.
The Minneapolis shooting has renewed a debate over the Second Amendment and concealed carry laws, but this time the political roles are reversed.
The right to bear arms has been a Republican Party big issue for decades. Conservative politicians have strongly defended the Second Amendment by successfully passing gun rights laws such as concealed carry in every state. Minneapolis shooting victim Alex Preddy was legally carrying a firearm, but top Trump administration officials say he did not have a right to do so.
You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple.
However, President Trump supported Kyle Rittenhouse after he shot and killed 2 men who tried grabbing his gun during a Kenosha protest following a police-involved shooting. Some January 6 rioters were armed, and many Republicans supported this Missouri couple who pointed their firearms at George Floyd protesters.
It's the height of hypocrisy, which continues out of the White House, scrambling to find some reason to show why these agents were justified.
Former Illinois House Republican leader Jim Durkin says the hypocrisy surrounding the Minneapolis case will continue to fracture the Republican Party. And while it took over 20 years to pass a restricted concealed carry law in Illinois, residents have a right to carry a loaded firearm to a protest. Minnesota shares the same right.
Mr. Preddy was not violating the law in terms of the Second Amendment. He had a constitutionally protected right, and the law in Minnesota did not prohibit him from carrying a firearm down there.
But former FBI agent Rob Chadwick, who now works for the U.S. Concealed Carry Association, says the law gets dicey if the armed person inserts themselves in a law enforcement operation. USCCA and a growing number of Republicans are calling for a full investigation into Preddy's death.
When you take that step and get involved physically in a law enforcement action, it is incredibly dangerous, and unintended consequences do happen.
Meantime, White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt says today that President Trump absolutely supports the Second Amendment for law-abiding Americans, but not for people who impede immigration enforcement operations.
Okay, so let's think about this for a second, guys. That I can't believe that we actually have to say it, because Kyle Rittenhouse, that douchebag, and I say douchebag because it's amazing how they defended that idiot. They defended him, a guy who did not have the ability to buy the AR that he had. His mom drove him to Kenosha, Washington, and he called himself defending businesses that did not request his help. And what happened? He got in trouble. He killed somebody. And then he basically got to walk scot-free. And that was one of the greatest injustices right there. Because at that point, the moment that they sat there and said that he was not guilty, at that point should have been the gold standard. It's like, oh, well, you're basically saying that you can take a gun that you shouldn't have, go to a location you didn't live in to protect businesses that did not ask for your help because they were protesting what was going on at the time, and you took it upon yourself to insert yourself and make it violent, and then try to sit there and say, well, I was only defending myself. Well, why were you there in the first effing place? But what I'm getting at is, when they sat there and said he was not guilty, you basically said it was okay to be armed at a protest. You said it was okay to be armed at a protest. So it's amazing to me that when you have someone, Mr. Peretti, who is a nurse, who is a veteran, who was simply trying to help others that were being pushed down and assaulted by ICE, that he was armed legally to carry in the state of Minnesota. He followed every rule as a gun-carrying U.S. citizen, and you had untrained, trigger-happy ICE Gestapo take his gun from his holster, which was right at his back, take the gun from him, and then execute him. And then you have Kash Patel, Sean Hannity, you have Fox News and CBS News, you have the state-run media immediately going with it. Well, you shouldn't be armed because that makes you dangerous. That makes you a domestic terrorist because you interfered with ICE operations. Really? What was Kyle Rittenhouse doing? Because I cannot see a man that killed another person, then was able to smooth walk by first responders and law enforcement officers, and it took 3 days for him to finally be arrested, a month later for him to be tried, and a jury to decide in less than 12 hours that he was not guilty. But you're going to sit there and condemn this man because he speaks out against ICE. And rightly so. ICE has done more damage than they've done help. And that is why, guys, we have to be vigilant. But the whole idea, and I say this because whenever it comes to gun ownership, I always say it's about guns in America. They always say you have the right to own a gun, but you shouldn't own it at a protest. You have the right to protest and be armed, but you cannot get involved with any type of law enforcement. Although ICE is not law enforcement, I wish they really stopped saying that. ICE is not law enforcement. They are immigration enforcement, yes, but not law enforcement. Because they have pulled some shady stuff, even though they have been empowered by the current administration, even though they have been empowered by the Supreme Court, even though they have been empowered by those that be, to where it feels like they're getting a clean slate. They are not a law enforcement entity. And it's amazing to me going back to gun ownership, because as a black person and I own firearms, let me tell you something. It will never scare white folks more. And I say white folks because, again, I am talking directly to you. Not all you white folks, but you know the ones I'm talking about. It scares them when people of color have the same rights, have the same access, and have the same firearms that they do. Don't believe me? Look at the Mumford Act. Because again, Mumford Act, Los Angeles, California, Black Panthers armed themselves against local and state police. And the Black Panther chapter at the time was quite large. And they followed the legal law that they could arm themselves with shotguns and pistols. And they did so legally, to the point to where the Mumford Act was created. Now think about that. The only time in American history where people of color basically went for the same rights as white folks, and they had to create a law to curtail. They had to create an act of Congress to curtail that. So what am I getting at? I'm getting at the fact that there's suggestions for them and rules for us. And I'm sorry, that's exactly what it is. Because they want to sit there and say, oh, well, Peretti should have been armed. Well, neither should Kyle Rittenhouse. Neither should the protest when social distancing was happening, when COVID-19 was going on. when you simply thought the target or the target of the Starbucks down the street needed your single protection because you bought an AR from Bass Pro Shops and you wanted to protect them from those that might be looters, which kind of find out some of the looters were basically paid law enforcement actors. But you want to protect your Kyle Rittenhouse, but you'll condemn your Paredes. That alone is bullshit. But there is some good news out of this, as a woman who was accused of ramming federal agents, basically ICE agents, basically got her due. And at the same time, not only acquitted, but she's suing. And I'm happy for her.
The case against Miramar Martinez, accused of ramming a Border Patrol vehicle, is dismissed.
I just want to thank the judges, all the parents that supported me, everybody that supported me. I'm just grateful for everything.
Martinez had been accused of ambushing federal agents in October when she was seen in this video in a convoy tailing them as they carried out immigration enforcement operations. The cars collided. Then an agent opened fire, shooting Martinez 5 times. The Department of Homeland Security labeling her a domestic terrorist, and prosecutors charged her with assault.
These agents were lying about what happened. Ms. Martinez never rammed anybody. These agents hit Ms. Martinez. These agents jumped out and shot Ms. Martinez, a U.S. citizen whose only crime was warning her fellow community members that ICE was in the neighborhood.
The agent who opened fire, Charles Exum, appeared to brag about the shooting in text messages showed in court. I fired 5 rounds and she had 7 holes. Put that in your book, boys. Asked about those messages, he responded, I am a firearms instructor and I take pride in my shooting skills. Defense attorneys said moments before the collision, a second agent in the car is heard on body camera footage daring Martinez, do something, expletive, before Exum swerves his vehicle into Martinez's car, then gets out and opens fire. The incident sparked protests on Chicago's southwest side. In a stunning move and without explanation, prosecutors decided to drop the charges, and the judge dismissed the case.
It's been hard. Honestly, it's been hard. Like I can't sleep, but now I'm gonna go sleep.
Her attorney suggested Martinez may now take legal action, and he hinted, George, there's a separate investigation going on to determine if that shooting was even
Aaron,
justified.
this is just one example of the administration's actions running into trouble in court. We had the Comey prosecution this week facing real questions from.
So, yeah, it's the simple fact of the matter, guys, that think about that. Imagine you being labeled as a domestic terrorist. Imagine that they shot at you, you somehow survived, and that you had to go through a court case to prove not only that you had to go through court, not only to prove that you didn't do it, but exonerated. And I'm going to be honest, to that woman, get lawyer, Miss Martinez, please get lawyers. Please sue the entire administration, not just Department of Homeland Security, not just ICE. Sue the administration for all they're worth, because at the end of the day, money is what's gonna bring things down. Unfortunately, that's the case. It is. Even now, as all this is going on, that Democrats, not all Democrats, are all joining to have the current head of DHS, Ice Barbie, Kristi Noem. They want to have her removed, and of course, Chief of Staff Stephen Miller removed. Now, let's be honest. The Nazi Miller is not going away anytime soon. He's the guy pulling the strings. He's the guy, and I tell people all this time, and I'm not the only person that said this. Other people have said this as well. Stephen Miller is literally and figuratively the guy behind the curtain. He is the guy that turns around and says, well, at the end of it all, I just want, I want immigration pulled. I want to enforce this. I want to enforce that. And Trump, being the vegetable that he is just rubber stamping it, because these are all his policies. These are all, keep in mind what I'm saying, guys. These are all his policies. And it's amazing to me, at the simple fact of the matter, that if you think for 1 second that above all else, he's going to be okay with it. So, like I said before, will Kristi Noem be gone? That remains to be determined. I'm not going to tell. I ain't going to tell that lie. Does it remain to be determined? Yes. It completely and utterly remains to be determined, because I'm not sure that he will be. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised. Will Kristi Noem go before Stephen Miller? Yes. A lot of people will go before he does. At the same time, guys, I'm just simply not surprised about what they would do if given the chance. But I'm on the line of just, you know what? I am on the line of we'll see. Kristi Noem at this point, again, when it comes to the whole idea of what's going on with her and everything else, I am not surprised about her. You know, the fact that her husband had other things going on as far as crap, what I was gonna say. Oh, with ad running, the fact that, you know, she happens to be the picture girl of everything. And again, I've already said this before when it comes to Trump's people. Trump has learned from the first time that he has done something like this. He's not going to pick the smartest people. You know who he's going to pick? He is going to pick loyalists. Everybody around him are loyalists. So we will see what happens with ICE, with Hoonan jumping in, Greg Bavino going back to his position in California. We will see. But if Minnesota has taught us anything, guys, that they are with it. And again, with Minnesota, 2 other stories out of there, they are definitely with it. Hands are ready to eat for everybody. But before we leave Minnesota, there is 2 stories I did want to pick on, and this one lets you know how bad ICE gets it wrong, because they almost caused an international incident.
This is the customer. Relax. Okay, relax. I did not enter. And if you touch me, I will grab you. If you touch me, I will grab you. You're. This is the customer. Relax. Okay, relax. I did not enter. And if you touch me, I will grab you. If you touch me, I will grab you. Okay. You can know that. Okay, well, don't touch me. Okay. You can know that. You can know that. All right, let's go. You can know that. This is the consulate. This is the foreign government department. You can know that. Right? I'm in close the door. Right? Yeah. Right there. Right? Yeah.
Now, what's crazy about that, folks, is for the simple fact of the matter, right? That was the Ecuador embassy. Now, for all those that don't know about the Ecuadorian embassy, there's some things you ought to know. And if you don't know about embassies, I will gladly give you a 5-second tutorial. Embassies, if you don't already know, especially on U.S. soil, are not U.S. soil. They are foreign soil. You might see a Somalian, you might see French, you might see UK, you might see, XYZ. Just understand that if a country has an embassy in the United States, it is seen as foreign soil. Local police cannot cross, FBI cannot cross, ICE is learning very quickly they cannot cross. Why? Because they are basically considered diplomatic areas. No-go fly zones. If a U.S. person was crossing into one of these areas, into one of these embassies, and they were not invited, that is literally can be seen as an act of war. And what is the ICE agent trying to do? Trying to enter an area where they have no jurisdiction or authority whatsoever. And guys, I am pointing this out. That is how you have an international incident waiting to happen. And the guy and the guy was right. Here's the crazy part. The actual person at the end of it all was right. He sat there and said, "You cannot enter here. I'm ICE." And so we got water. We're good. You couldn't enter. And he kept telling them that. And the person on the other side of the door for the embassy was right. Because had that ICE person entered in and tried to enforce U.S. laws, Ecuador wouldn't be too freaking happy. An international incident would happen, which goes to show you that whoever is at the hiring practices for the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and ICE should also be fired, along with everybody else that they've hired. But the other story that we have before we move on from Minnesota, guys, is that Representative Ilhan Omar. Guys, if you haven't seen this story, that just I think we'll say last night, she was speaking at a town hall and someone decided to spray her. I just want you to pay attention for 1 second how she acted, because I think Representative Omar, I think she had hands ready to eat for everybody.
Overnight in Minneapolis, a man arrested after confronting Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar at a town hall, spraying an unknown liquid from a syringe.
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem must resign or face impeachment.
President Trump, who has often publicly attacked Omar, telling ABC News overnight that he hadn't seen video of the incident, adding, she probably had herself sprayed. Knowing her, Omar posting, quote, I am okay. I don't let bullies win. And tensions are running high throughout Minneapolis over the Trump administration's immigration policies, with new details emerging.
Okay, so with that, I'm sorry. I was kind of hoping the video would go a little bit more, because when I tell you, and they didn't really show it all, and and that's okay. That's on me. But what I wanted to show was, let me see if I get this part. There we go. She was going toward him. Now, don't get me wrong. Security showed exactly what ICE should do in most situations. You can take down somebody without resorting to lethal force. You really and truly could. But what I love about Ilhan Omar is she was about to walk up, and I'm just gonna be honest with you. I had a Black Panther moment. I am not gonna lie. For all those that don't remember Black Panther, the challenge scene where M'Baku was walking towards Shuri, and you saw the guards just do X's. But notice that the X's, when they do the cross with the spears didn't protect Shuri. They basically kept M'Baku from her as protection. That's all I saw in this, because I'll be honest with you, I don't see why guys do this. I'm not just saying guys in general. I'm just saying guys as just the neutral term. Don't think progressive women can't fight, because you will be surely surprised. Because Omar was about to sit there and say, "Come on, I've survived war. I've survived a war. You ain't shit." Even though she does go to say, these effing a-holes are not going to get away with this. And I love the fact when they asked her, are you okay? Are you okay? And she does say in another interview, I'm fine. I'm going to go get checked out, but I've survived much worse. And let's also be honest. This woman who is of Somalian descent, she's come from war-torn areas to where she's probably seen things that a lot of us we hope to never see. And a guy walking up to her saying, after she called for the impeachment of Kristi Noem from DHS, that didn't faze her at all. She was ready to squabble up. And I give her respect for that. Because again, as I move on to the next thing, Democrats, you have a winning formula right in front of you. Progressive women. I think that the centrist Democrats need to move on. I've said before, Nancy Pelosi has sat there and said she's not going to run again. Thank you for your service, but your time is done. Chuck Schumer, you should be the same way. Chuck Schumer, thank you for your service, but the time of centrist and modern Democrats is done. Progressive, liberal women need to lead the charge. Well, you want AOC, you want Ilhan Omar, you want Rashida Tlaib, you want Jasmine Crockett, you want all these women to move forward and lead the Democratic Party. Yeah. Because again, we've honestly, in the last 2 out of the 4 elections, we've had qualified women. You may have not liked Hillary Clinton, but she was a former first lady. She was a state senator. She was a secretary of state. I think she's qualified. This woman has met more world leaders in 3 different positions than most first ladies have met their next door neighbors. And of course, Madam VP Harris, again, a prosecutor, a senator, a vice president, and very intelligent. who I still think got shafted because Biden didn't do the right thing and announce his reason to not run again. He should have done it way earlier. And you basically cheaped her. But again, those two beyond qualified, intelligent women against an idiot who may or may not have Alzheimer's disease, who may or may not be overweight because he loves McDonald's, doesn't sleep, and basically acts like a senile old man that left the home and nobody went looking for him, and America voted for him twice. That is the reason why I'm saying for the Democratic Party, let women lead. Other countries have shown having a woman as prime minister, or as president, or as the top leader in your country will not make your manhood feel any different. I can't follow a woman. And yet every other country out there has had a woman in a presidential or prime minister or leadership role. And those countries are still standing. Miss me with the bullshit. That being said, guys, we do have a couple of DOJ stories. I know we got a lot, but we're running through it. This is sad because, again, this goes back to Minnesota, where, again, the DOJ has sat there and said that they will not do a civil rights violation probe into the shooting of Mr. Peretti, which, again, screams volumes. And what I say about that screams volumes is this is Trump's lap bitch, Pam Bondi, pulling her weight, because I've said it before and I've said it again. These are loyalists. These are not the smartest people. Pam Bondi is doing everything that she can to suppress every civil rights case, suppress every Epstein file, which we'll go into, which again, we got to start on that later on, and any shooting that involves ICE, she's going to suppress or dodge. We are not surprised that they're not going to do this, but they're going to launch investigations into the ICE officers, two of them that were confirmed shooting Mr. Peretti, and the deceased, which we know that's bullshit, because that's character assassination 101. Whenever any type of enforcement, whether it's law enforcement, immigration, gets involved in a shooting, the first thing that they always do is character assassination of the deceased, because dead men can't talk, or dead women. And it never ceased to amaze me now that we are not going to see justice. And also the same reason why I'm going back to that Fulton County case, as well as Pam Bondi's extortion. They are trying to get evidence because they see the writing on the wall, because they know that if Democrats do get the White House, if the Democrats do get the House, do get the Senate by overwhelming majority, keep in mind, for impeachment, it takes 2/3 majority. And let's just play what if. What if 10 months from now, Democrats have overwhelmingly won the House and the Senate? I wouldn't be surprised if Taco decided to croak 2 days after that, because he's been saying this in all of his rallies. We have to win the midterms, because if we don't, and the Democrats win the House and the Senate, they are going to try to impeach me. Try ain't the word, because if you have the House and you have the Senate and you have by overwhelming majority, like I said, if the Democrats get 2/3, because that's going to be what they're not going to talk about now, but as we get closer and closer to the midterms, is 2/3. You're going to see them talk about, well, how many seats? The conservatives are basically playing least damaging scenario. How much can we get to prevent them from running roughshod over us? That's all it is. And you'll hear that, and you'll hear 2/3, 2/3, 2/3. You're going to hear that a lot. But if the Democrats do get 2/3, guess what's going to happen? Oh, they're going to run with it. They're going to subpoena. It's going to be impeachments left and right. Impeachment of DOJ for Pam Bondi, impeachment of all his cabinet positions, and dissolution of ICE, because a lot of people are calling for it, and Democrats could run with it. Now, I will also be honest, the current form of ICE, because it needs to go back to INS, honestly. It needs to go back to INS because ICE, similar to the Department of Homeland Security, similar to the Space Force, all need to be dissolved. That's just being honest. All need to be dissolved. And if Democrats decide to run with these promised campaign platforms, again, leading with women, I would not be surprised by a landslide. But the other story that I do have, and again, I did kind of touch on this with the DOJ, that the DOJ says it will finish Epstein file reviews in the near term. In the near term. Guys, this is why I keep on saying the DOJ is playing defense. And they're playing defense for Trump. There have been multiple jokes, multiple everything else. Oh, what is in these files that Trump is scared of? What is in these files that he has to do distraction after distraction after distraction, and folks aren't going to let it go? What is in these files that is so bad that he is basically saying, you better win the election, you guys better win the midterms, or my ass is impeached, or worse, in jail? And I'm just saying, the fact that the Department of Justice, who by court order was supposed to release all files, have come up with excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse. The most recent one, we will finish in the near term because there's millions of pages, because it's always an excuse. Oh, there's millions of pages. Oh, we have to protect the victims. Oh, we have to make sure that Trump is safe. We have to redact these files. We're going to give you some. We're going to sit there and say, oh, here's a picture of Bill Gates. Here's a picture of Bill Clinton, AKA Bubba, because we know Trump loves him some Bubba. But here's the thing. We could care less about the distractions. You guys were on the platform that you released the Epstein files, not realizing that Trump is in the Epstein files and must be damaging beyond an effing fault. And that is why the DOJ will drag their feet. And that is also why they have to suppress evidence. Because, again, it is kind of expected that everybody in the Trump administration may or may not turn around and be held liable for their actions in the current term. It'll be an interesting 10 months. That's all I'm going to say. But speaking of people that want to nail Trump to the wall, former special counsel Jack Smith did testify. And again, if you didn't see him testify in front of Congress, let's just be honest. Republicans did their usual thing while Jack Smith just sat there and said, I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that this motherfucker's guilty. Pardon my French.
Capitol Hill for the first time in public, former special counsel Jack Smith pressed on his decision to indict President Trump. Republicans taking aim today how Jack Smith responded, and Democrats reading quotes from Republican leaders and what they said about President Trump in the hours after January 6th. Here's Pierre Thomas.
Tonight, in a hotly contested congressional hearing, former special counsel Jack Smith speaking in public at length for the very first time, saying he was right to indict President Trump.
Our investigation developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in criminal activity.
And he said he would do it again.
Based on the same facts today, I would do so regardless of whether that president was a Democrat or a Republican.
Smith testifying he has no regrets despite receiving death threats and having been personally attacked by President Trump for charging him with illegally retaining classified documents, obstruction of justice, and engaging in a conspiracy to overturn the 2020 election, charges Trump flatly denies and that were later dropped.
President Trump was charged because the evidence established that he willfully broke the law.
But Republicans attacked Smith from the moment he was sworn in, accusing him of being a politically motivated prosecutor trying to stop Trump from being reelected.
It was always about politics. And to get President Trump, they were willing to do just about anything.
Democratic Congressman Jared Moskowitz among those defending Smith, claiming hypocrisy by many Republicans who he claims changed their view of January 6th.
Steve Scalise, United States Capitol Police, saved my life. Lindsey Graham, when it comes to accountability, the president needs to understand his actions were the problem.
The hearing caught the attention of President Trump, who was thousands of miles away overseas, posting on social media, based on his testimony today, there is no question that deranged Jack Smith should be prosecuted for his actions. Smith suggesting he expects no less.
Do you believe
that President Trump's Department of Justice will find some way to indict you?
I believe that they will do everything in their power to do that because they've been ordered to by the president.
David, DOJ.
And he's 100% right, because we've seen them do that. They did that with New York AG Letitia James. They tried that with her. She laughed her ass off. And they tried it with former FBI Director James Comey, which again, that indictment was thrown out. So with Special Counsel Jack Smith, of course they're going to try. Why? Because they've been given their marching orders. Jack Smith, much like Robert Mueller, did their jobs investigating the Trump administration. They did. It was the fact that, unfortunately, when you have Republicans making sure that the golden cap is protected, they're going to do what they do best. Oh, well, this is a sham. He was set up to investigate the president. He was not going to leave until he actually got some evidence. Not realizing that Jack Smith was basically the result of Trump asking for special counsel when his case first started. That's how, for a lot of people who don't understand that, that's how Jack Smith got here. Because Trump and his lawyers requested a special counsel. And so, enter Jack Smith. And you don't like Jack Smith, but you requested special counsel, which I think is kind of bullshit, personally. But again, like journalists said, it is amazing how conservatives remember January 6th, along differently from the rest of us, although video and everything else would say differently. But also, before I go on to TikTok, I've been to say this before with ICE, with armed protests. You two FA people are quiet as hell. I mean, you two FA people, the rights to bear arms shall not be infringed. America, you fuckers. The fact that you swore up and down that a black man was coming for your guns, that you didn't want to be on a national registry for how many guns you own or how much ammo you buy or for the gear that you have, the fact that you are always against any type of legislation after every school shooting and mass murder that's occurred on this freaking country, you two FA people are quiet as church mice right now. I have yet, and again, if you're watching this live or on the replay, I have yet to see one of you come out and sit there and say, this is bullshit. He followed the rules. He complied and he still got killed. You two FA people, you don't tread 2FA9 line, whatever apparel that bucked up, whatever apparel that you have, please and kindly shut the fuck up and never talk again. Because this was your moment. This was your Call of Duty wet dream. I never enlisted the armed services, but here's my turn to play Rambo. You cosplatriots, and you're quiet. I thought I would see at least one of y'all. I thought I would be like, well, his rights were infringed upon. We need to talk about it. Across social media, you two FA people are quiet as effing church mice. And I only can draw two conclusions from this. Either one, you agree with everything that's going on, despite your rebellious nature of wanting to make sure that you can defend yourselves against the tyrannical government, which you've always claimed. You always claim we want to defend ourselves against a government that will basically treat us like Britain did back, like England did back in the day. That's what that's your mantra. That's your rebel without a cause. And yet, when it comes to armed protest, you were loud as hell during COVID, during the protest, during armed protests in places of legislation and lawmaking. Y'all were vocal as hell. You were vocal on January 6th. But now in Minnesota, where, again, a registered nurse, former combat veteran, was armed legally and complied, got executed, and all of you fuckers are silent. Miss me with the rights to bear arms to be infringed upon when it could have been some of y'all who signed up for ICE, not realizing that 50K bonus is not going to be immediate, but you might be able to live out your dream fantasy. Execution without consequences. So to all those 2FA people right now, on behalf of myself and how the Frack We Got Here, fuck you and have the day you deserve. You condescending, hyper aggressive, quiet when the shit hits the fan pieces of shit. Now, that being said, let's get to TikTok, because if you're wondering why the app is messing up, well, it's because it's under new management now, all for the same reasons why conservatives said they didn't want it in the hands of Chinese people.
Was finally done to say TikTok in the United States. The app's Chinese parent company has officially agreed to create a separate venture to handle U.S. operations because of national security concerns here at home. So what's changing? ABC's Nicole D'Antonio has the answers. Nicole, good morning.
Well, Sophie, good morning. The company is spinning off its U.S. operations to avoid being banned in the U.S. Congress was worried about so much American data being in the hands of the Chinese. Now, as part of this new joint venture, the tech company Oracle, led by billionaire Larry Ellison, will join other major investors, including an investment firm from Abu Dhabi, and they'll split a majority stake in TikTok. So crucial to this deal is TikTok's algorithm, which will now be retrained using American data. Oracle will oversee data storage and security. Now, this deal is not expected to dramatically change the user experience overnight, but because the algorithm will use a different set of data, it could lead to changes in how that content is personalized. Critics worry the app being handed to Larry Ellison, a Trump donor who already controls Paramount CBS, is trying to buy Warner Brothers. But President Trump is celebrating the deal, thanking China's president for his cooperation.
So I'm going to point this out. If you're wondering if you're on TikTok and wondering why the app is crashing, that's why. But it is amazing to me, guys. Amazing to me how in the world, because keep in mind, just a little over last year, what was the whole thing? That we don't want the Chinese government taking your data. That we do what can they do with Americans' data? What can they do with their personal information? Entertain us? Because initially what TikTok was what Facebook was. Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and every other thing was. It was freedom. They couldn't control what you saw. Much like in Facebook, you ever seen your feed? Pretty much full of ads and people you never want to see. Same way with Instagram, same way with Snapchat. TikTok was really the free place to where you actually got to hear different things. You actually got to see a lot of people actually thrive. You actually got to see some things happen, and at the same time, it was literally and figuratively refreshing. But what happened after that? Oh, conservatives came, because here's the thing: the government hates competition. We do know that they get our data through all social medias. Also means they can control. They didn't control TikTok. ByteDance did, a Chinese company. So this whole thing of, well, they can use your data to get this, that, and the other, and we just cannot allow that as Americans, so we're going to block TikTok. Hence the block. Unless you have VPN. Hence the block. Folks were outraged, devoided of their TikTok accounts. People who actually were commissioned and had their own business off TikTok hindered and things of that nature. And what happened after that? Well, enter Larry Ellison and Oracle, who, if you haven't noticed, are doing the exact same thing that conservatives were arguing that a Chinese group was going to do. So I just find it funny where a lot of people are saying, well, it's been real, TikTok, because TikTok is no longer unique. It's the same as Facebook. It's the same as Instagram. It's the same as Snapchat. And I can keep going down the list of every social media app that's in the US, because those are bought, paid for, and compromised. And TikTok just joined the parade. But hey, it was fun while it lasted. Thank you for your service, TikTok. Now that you're Americanized, well, you'll be the next Vine. Moving right along, guys. Health insurance CEOs were also at Capitol Hill. Why? Because we need to know about the high cost of health insurance. As you can sit there, the CEOs of Cigna, of United Health Group, let me make sure I get this right. United Health Group, CVS Health Group, Cigna Health Group, Advanced Health, and Ascendium all before the House Energy and Commerce Committee, basically saying, look, we know what we have to, we know, guys, that we have discussed the cost of, because you guys are about to remove the premiums, which will make healthcare prices skyrocket. You guys have to understand. You guys really have to understand. Us as CEOs with golden parachutes and exorbitant packages, we don't answer to our customers. Our customers, we could care less about. It's our shareholders. That is what every CEO out there will wish they could say, but they won't say. Because again, when it comes to healthcare costs, and I keep saying this all the time, healthcare in the US is a for-profit system, and that's the problem. It is amazing to me that the same healthcare costs that are in Canada or in Mexico or any other country that has modern medicine are vastly lower. Like, for example, people wonder why some people don't want to have kids in a hospital. You want to know? Estimated cost of a birth in a hospital for a single child, anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. Insurance may pay up to 70 or 75% of that if you're lucky. It costs more to bring a child into this world in a hospital in the US than any other place. That's what people like doing home births or alternative care to bring a child into the world. They'll usually go with that. But a hospital, 10 to 15,000. Surgery, same way. Depending on how complex surgery is, could be the same way. Your prescriptions. Again, I've never understood the cost of life-saving medication for heart disease, for diabetes, for lupus, for other ailments or pain managing medications are freaking sky high. The cost of living in America, which we already know is too freaking high. The cost of American medicine is damn near diabolical. And what are these CEOs saying? Oh, they're saying everything else under the sun. Oh, well, it's healthcare costs. Then we have to pay for the uninsured. And then, they're giving every excuse in the book. While each of these companies are literally broadcasting profits. I'm gonna be honest with you. I kind of wish I brought this up, and I should have brought this up for the show. I apologize. But United Health Group, CVS Health Group, Cigna Health Group, those three alone all had reported profits. All reported profits. And why? Because those same people and their lobbyists were allowed, and I mean this wholeheartedly, they were allowed to write the healthcare laws that we currently have in place in this country. And so I can hear people now, well, Will, what you're basically saying is just that, so right now, these CEOs and their companies are controlling the cost of healthcare in this country? Yes. And as long as healthcare is for profit, healthcare in this country won't change. We tried. We tried. Obamacare is not perfect. Let me be honest with you guys. Obamacare is definitely not perfect. It's not. I will be completely and utterly honest about that. Obamacare is not perfect. It was a start. It was just like the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act, because we sat there and said about immigration, the immigration system needed to be fixed. Why did it take a black man to be president to finally introduce an act like the DREAM Act, to finally introduce a path to citizenship? And what happened? Republicans shot it down. Keep in mind, Republicans have not produced a immigration reform package since ever. Unless you want to count Trump and his gold cards, in which Nicki Minaj, I guess, owns one now, but you just paid a lot of money for a paperweight. But what I'm getting at is Republicans have yet to introduce a health care plan. Trump's concepts of a plan, as he wants to give you money, but do nothing about the cost of health care, does not hold these healthcare companies liable. Because when it comes down to the cost of prescription drugs, it'll always come down to an argument between the healthcare companies and the pharmaceutical companies that make those drugs. It'll be like mom and dad want to blame each other, but honestly, it's equal faults in the divorce. That's the point I'm getting at. And you, being the American taxpayer, are so worried. Like these days, you get worried to get sick because maybe getting sick might financially bankrupt you from the cost of care. But like I said, whenever they bring the CEOs in front of the House Commerce Committee and ask them why costs are up, I wish, and I say this all the time, I wish those CEOs were held their foot to the fire. I used to work for Cigna. Like, I'll be honest with you, I used to work for Cigna. I can't stand the current CEO of Cigna right now. I honestly think he's a piece of shit. I do. But at the same time, almost every CEO of a healthcare company is a piece of shit. Because whenever you hear them talk, they always talk in dollars. They talk in dollars, they talk in profits. What they don't talk in is customer care. To them, CEOs, all they care about is profits and shareholders. That's what keeps them in their cushy, luxury, golden parachute, if you needed, profession. While the American taxpayer is trying to figure out, do I pay to go to the emergency room or do I pay rent? Do I pay for this prescription or do I let the car payment lapse? Do I get the insulin for my daughter or do I pay her tuition? And that is the reality that these CEOs are so disillusioned with. But like I said, I digress. Move right along to a couple more stories before we get to our feel good segment, guys. I have talked about the fact that whenever it comes to RFK and the fact of how dangerous a person he is about instituting certain things. Well, I am not surprised about this one. And what I mean about this is, remember I said a while back where RFK was like, why does a child need so many vaccinations before they turn age 2? And he talked about the fact of, well, and then this is also before, Tylenol causes autism in pregnant women. And he had to walk that back when science again showed him that he was fucking wrong. Well, in this case, remember when he sat there and rolled back protections for vaccine guidelines? Well, thankfully, and I say thankfully, and I'll get to that part momentarily. Thankfully, the American Academy of Pediatrics, guys, sat there and said that we will continue the current standard of giving vaccines to children to protect them against 18 potentially life-threatening diseases, such as COVID, the flu, hepatitis A, B, and measles. Keep in mind about measles, because keep in mind, the American Academy of Pediatrics is going against what the CDC was doing with the CDC's new guidelines. Now, I am glad, because I've sat there and said before, I trust the science, okay? I trust the science. I trust doctors. I trust medical researchers. Why? They have been trained. They have done the medical school. They have done the residency. They have been board certified meticulously. So I trust them in their education that they know what they're talking about. I don't trust RFK because RFK is not a doctor. He's never been a medical researcher. He's never worked in the medical field. He's never been a nutritionist. He hasn't been any of these things. He is just a Kennedy with internet access, unfortunately a cough that will never go away, and too much time on his hands. That's all RFK actually is. With that being said, he said that, well, we don't need that many vaccines and that leave it up to the parents to make a choice. Well, here's what happens when you leave idiots up to a choice from an anti-vaxxer.
In the country 25 years ago. Ann Thompson joins me now. And what are local health officials there saying?
They're very upset, Tom, because this is a new high for South Carolina and the nation. Since Friday, the state has added 89 new measles cases, bringing the outbreak total to 789, surpassing the 762 cases in Texas last year. 2 children died in that outbreak. There are no known deaths in the South Carolina outbreak, which is centered in Spartanburg County. Officials say it was first reported among some families who immigrated from Ukraine in recent decades. That county has a vaccination rate of just 90%, which is below the 95% threshold for herd immunity, Tom.
So let's think about that for a second, folks. Let's think about that for a second. RFK sat there and says, we're going to roll back some mandated vaccines. And what happens when you roll them back? Measles comes back in full force. Why? Because parents, and I say this, and let me say this. I'm going to say this the best way I can without, because if you're an anti-vaxxer, fuck your feelings. I don't care about you. Anti-vaxxers are dangerous. You know why anti-vaxxers are dangerous? They're the tinfoil hat community. They believe every vaccine has something in it that can harm a child, stunts its growth, creates autism or whatever. They believe all these things with next to nothing in evidence. And I say next to nothing. Sometimes they'll type up a paper that they swore up and down, but really came off Reddit, but that's a whole nother thing. But imagine parents who are anti-vaxxers who go against physicians' recommendations and say, no, I don't want my child getting that. And what happens? Measles comes back. Smallpox comes back. Diseases that we thought were gone are making a return. Why? Because parents who are anti-vaxxers are pretty much declining shots for their children. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, I've never said that. Unless there is a medical reason that a child cannot get a vaccination, in which the doctors usually go over that. I'm sorry, but when it comes to my children, they're getting all the shots. You want to know why? Because when you get all the shots, you don't get measles. You don't get hepatitis A. You don't get hepatitis B. You don't get smallpox. You don't get chickenpox. You don't get polio, because you have the vaccinations needed to make sure that you don't get those things. That is the beauty of modern medicine. But also, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, because I actually do listen. I like to listen to doctors and go off the science. Anti-vaxxer people, y'all can do what nature intended. Shuffle off the mortal coil, if you will, because you guys are introducing a dangerous precedent. Because a lot of people say, well, that's the whole point of vaccinations, isn't it? That my child to be able to go around your child and not get sick. That lets me know that you have next to nothing knowledge on how vaccinations work and how biology works. But the fact that there are nearly 800 cases in South Carolina for a symptom of a outbreak that I thought we would never see again rise back up, and it can only be because of anti-vaxxers. So with that being said, folks, please listen to your doctor. Please don't listen to RFK. Please listen to those who have the experience, the know-how, and the knowledge and education to back it up. Please not listen to a guy who could not clear his throat if he had Ricola on an IV drip. That's all I'm saying. But the next to last story that we got, guys, I felt the ways about this one because when it comes to Kanye West or Ye or however else he calls himself, Ye has always did the things that gives him attention. I always call him a person that was pretty much locked in the sunken place, because at this point, he's pretty much got his own condominium, bunker, and cul-de-sac. That being said, let me just play the video before I actually give my actual thoughts on this.
The rapper formerly known as Kanye is apologizing today for, in his words, reckless behavior. He took out this full-page ad in the Wall Street Journal, Ye did, titled, "To Those I've Hurt," going on to say he is not a Nazi or an anti-Semite and that he loves Jewish people. You probably remember over the last couple of years, Ye said a lot of anti-Semitic things, a lot of racist things. At one point, he sold T-shirts with swastikas on them. He had previously apologized for his anti-Semitism, then took that apology back before this apology now. And in this ad, he says his behavior stems from an undiagnosed brain injury caused by a car crash he was in 25 years ago. We should note the timing of this here, just a few days before his 12th album is set to drop. Chloe Malas is covering this one for us. I think some of the reaction has been interesting to this too, including from the Anti-Defamation League and from others as well.
You know, Hallie, it's complicated. I have covered Kanye West for 17 years. And when I was at CNN, I did, a really in-depth report at the time that Kanye had planned to name an album of his Hitler. I think that a lot of people are struggling with this public open letter, this apology coming from Kanye West, because like you pointed out, Hallie, he has apologized in the past. And in this, he writes, to those I've hurt, he says, bipolar disorder comes with its own defensive system, denial. When you're manic, you don't think you're sick. Everyone else is overreacting. But I will say that Kanye West, now Ye, he has said multiple times very publicly that he does not suffer from bipolar disorder. He's actually said that he suffers from autism, or that he has autism, that he has other issues, but that this was not one of them. So he was very public about saying that he did not suffer from bipolar disorder. And now he's saying a few days before his new album is coming out that he is not a Nazi, that he loves the Jewish people. And it makes you wonder, is he being sincere? It's all come down to him wanting to sell albums, Hallie.
Yeah, Chloe, and the ADL saying to the New York Times that the truest apology would be for him to not engage in anti-Semitic behavior in the future. Chloe Malas, lots to watch on that.
Okay, so like I said, usually don't cover Kanye because, again, actions speak louder than words. And when I first heard about this, I was like, okay, do I think people can change? Yes. I do think that if you're truly trying to change and be a better person and trying to make amends, you got to go in and do the work. Obviously, you're going to do the work. Will it take time? Yes. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, it will take time. That being said, what bothers me about that is that, you have an album coming out. And that's the part. And again, that doesn't bother me because that's what they usually do. I have an album coming out. Please tune in. Please check it out. I'm so sorry for all the things I did. Please come back, run my streams up, buy my album. I'm used to that. What I'm not used to is the level of excuses. I was bipolar. Well, I was manic. Well, I was autistic. Here's my thing. First and foremost, those are things that you just don't casually throw around. There are folks out there that are bipolar. There are folks out there that do go through episodes of episodes of being manic. There are folks out there that are autistic, and depending on where they are on the spectrum. Those are things that you just don't throw out there just because they seem like little nice catchphrases. That's where I'm skeptical. See, I was with that until I'm like, no, you're doing this for attention. And that's the problem. And what Kanye is basically what America is when you finally realize we give the wrong people way too much attention, and we really should be giving them all the isolation in the world. Because I see people now, will you wait? What if Kanye's sincere? He's not. Remember how he acted crazy to get out of Adidas, and he turns around and says, gotcha. I acted this way so I can get out of whatever legal thing I was in, but I'm free now and I can sell. People don't forget that. And like I said before, with Charlie Kirk and his untimely deletion off this earth, your words will outlive you. Kanye's words will most certainly outlive him, but at the same time, it's going to be hard to prove that you're trying to turn a leaf if all you're trying to do is turn records. So again, let's just say when it comes to Kanye West, yeah, I just go back to a person that was, he drunk his own Kool-Aid and now he realizes, it's time to refill because I got albums coming out. So just my opinion on that. But anyway, we're going to move on to our feel-good segment because usually on How the Frack We Got Here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom and sometimes make you faith in humanity. But hey, it's Wednesday. Tomorrow's Thursday. We will leave you guys out with some positive vibes and good vibrations. And the next story we have will hopefully do that because, again, I love stories about the next generation and acts of kindness that come from kids that not only is unheard of, but is welcome, which lets me know the younger generation going to be all right.
Finally tonight, America Strong and the teen who has already made helping others his life's work.
This week, 14-year-old Trent Kaysen was busy in his kitchen making sandwiches, not for his family, but for others in need in his Arizona community.
So everything I do, I try to make it with the warmth and the love of our family.
The 50 carefully crafted sandwiches are part of a monthly effort to help others less fortunate.
To help them just bring some joy to their heart feels great.
According to his mother, Melissa, it all started when Trent was just 5.
He just was like, you know what? I don't want presents for my birthday. Can you guys just give me stuff to make a bag lunch and give sandwiches and blankets out to the homeless? And it kind of took me by surprise because what 5-year-old is going to ask for that for his birthday?
First year I did it, I really told my mom that I want to take this seriously. And every year just keep doing more. We also have bottles of water.
Nearly a decade and more than 5,000 meals later, that promise has become a mission, a nonprofit he calls Trent Cares.
Good morning.
Trent's family, friends, and basketball teammates joining the effort every month, a movement he insists is just the beginning.
And it can bring them some hope, give them the spirit to keep going every day.
Finally.
And like I said, you again, next generation going to be all right. if it takes a child to realize that he can help others with the means that he has, screams volumes and inspires others to go along with him, man, you know what? The next generation gonna be all right, really and truly. But that's gonna do it for this podcast, guys. Thank you all for watching, for liking, for letting people know the show is live. Again, from the bottom of my heart, I certainly appreciate it. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here as usual. Shout out to APR TV. Why? Because How the Frack We Got Here can be seen on APR TV. APR TV is an app that can be seen on the Roku channel device or the Amazon Fire TV app, along with other shows on there as well. Definitely check it out. You will not be disappointed. Also, blurredstation.com, guys. Blurred Station, a site that, again, for us, by us, with content, movies, television, music, anime, you name it, can be found there. $10.99 a month to stream Blurred Station. Blurred Station can be streamed on all devices. And we will, of course, be at BlurredCon this year. BlurredCon happening in DC in March. If you definitely do want to catch us, definitely go to the live stream, select BlurredCon 2025. If you want your business to be advertised on the BlurredCon stream, you can definitely go there. Simply go to live stream, select BlurredCon 2025, and then from there, select the tier advertising. 1 through 4 will let you know exactly what you get for each tier, and you'll be able to see your advertising businesses on there in case you can't make it. But definitely check out BlurredCon if you can. Definitely March of this year. You will not be disappointed. Also, guys, again, definitely check us out on YouTube at How the Frack We Got Here. As you can see right there, if you're typing How the Frack We Got Here podcast, we're the first thing that pops up. Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification button, guys, to let you know when we do go live or when another show is uploaded. Because, again, we cannot do any of this, guys, without you. So please like, share, subscribe, share the word. Tell a friend to tell a friend. I would certainly appreciate that. Also, guys, again, my own personal social black underscore Spartan 615. Sorry about that. You can definitely check me out there as well. You can like and share and follow me there. I usually talk to everybody. Just don't make it weird. I don't want to get having to blocking people. Also, check out my other brethrens at Blurred's Eye View, also on YouTube. Why do I say Blurred's Eye View? Well, because we're all part of that big, wonderful ship that is there, led by Chris Fury. And again, if you want to follow any of us there, guys, please follow us there at Room Full of Blurreds, at the Get Bit Podcast, How the Frack We Got Here, Navy Montel, Geek by Heart, Showquo, Lore of the Culture, and Tafari TV. We can all be found there. And as you can see, you can subscribe there directly from the Blurred's Eye View page. Again, guys, you will not be disappointed. And I know what I said, guys. Hopefully you are being safe and warm. This winter storm hit all of us from the Midwest all the way up to the from the South to the East Coast. Hopefully you guys are staying dry and warm. Hopefully if you haven't got power, may you get power back very soon. May you get back to a state of life very soon. But please stay safe, stay dry. There are warming centers, donation areas around your around where you live. Hopefully you can take advantage of those things. I do know if you're in Tennessee, I did post on my social media as well as others, warming centers, donation areas you can go to if you don't have power, if you don't have the ability to clean, wash clothes, things of that nature. There are definitely areas and location services out there that can definitely help you with that. Also, at the same time, guys, as always, protect your mental. Mental health is everything, guys. Protect your peace. Find something that makes you laugh, that makes you happy. If you need to take the time to reset yourself, please do that. Please take advantage of every phone service, of every other option out there except that last resort, because nobody wants to see you self-delete. You matter, you are needed, you are wanted. We need you in this great song of life to add your verse to. So please, oh please, protect your mental, protect your peace, check on your friends. And like I said, it's gonna be a long 10 months. But at the same time, we can learn a lesson from Minnesota. If we all stand together and resist, we find out that there are more of them. There are more of us than there are of them. I messed up a Bugs Life that badly, but you guys see what I'm getting at. But that being said, guys, again, thank you all for watching. I certainly appreciate it. We will definitely keep you updated with everything else going on in the world of news. That being said, last thing I'll say about How the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, allow you to make up your own mind. But we do provide a positive, objective perspective that goes along with it. We do better as a society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past, making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first black woman to Supreme Court, electing our first black woman as Federal Reserve Governor, and maybe one day electing our first black woman to be called Madam President. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up at our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians, but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other. And I promise we will get through this. Live long and prosper, guys. We're going to be all right. Peace.